Breaking the gray.
Sarah, I know. This is amazing today. We're very lucky to have captured our moving lung.
We are in the hub. We are in the Breathwork hub of America today.
We are, yes. I'm just glad I get to attend remotely from the magic that you're experiencing live in Austin. You're still in Austin.
In Austin, yeah. Austin, Texas. We are in the Wellpower headquarters.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Almost.
Oh my gosh. I will be there. I'll be there soon. I will make a point to get there soon because I want to join you there. And if Sarah's not there, then we'll just switch and say, Sarah, don't you wish you were here?
Yeah, exactly. You'll be in the Wellpower headquarters and I'll be in England sulking.
Sulking. The sun will be good. You'll be getting more sunlight though in March and later this year. So, but Kristin, it's great to see you again.
Nice to see you again too, Russ.
And things have been going well.
Russ, that's not like you at all.
I know. I just felt so badly we haven't introduced Kristin Weitzel is here, right?
I just want to say that you got my last name right, which is an excellent start. I still want to speak in the British accent.
I struggle with
from the Wellpower headquarters to speak to you about breath. This is what I love about Patrick McEwen. Speaking of breath, is that he says "bresh."
Oh,
he has such a beautiful accent.
Yes. He's Irish.
He's Irish. Yeah.
I don't want to murder the Irish accent either, but yes, he's
Irish.
Great.
I just listened to a Bono interview, and he talked about the relationship between Jamaicans and the Irish, and said if you ever listen to a Bob Marley song and you listen to our early U2 songs, the Jamaican the Jamaican English accent and the Irish accent is very similar because they were together for a while, I guess.
Wow.
But if you listen to Bob Marley and I hear Bono and I'm like, I didn't realize that was even a thing, but Jamaica, it's far away, but they're two islands.
Yeah, he's flattering himself a little bit.
Yeah, what happens if you play it backwards? I mean, it just gets crazier.
Yeah,
I love it.
It does, and then all of a sudden, Ozzy gets younger or something. Okay, so let's talk through this because Sarah and I this year. We're going on year 4 together. 3. It feels like we've been partners forever, but it's year 4, season 4. We're excited because both Sarah and I have kind of hitting this milestone year for us. We're equally 100. Like I've been jokingly saying, I'm 70, Sarah's 30, and I think we both are inspired by longevity, anti-aging. We've talked to every single person we can possibly talk to. And I think what resonates is what can we do to slow the aging process in our bodies? I mean, I can visibly see it now and I physically feel it, but I'm curious where you land on this, Kristin, because, and I know Sarah's too, like, what are the things we can do? What are the things we can employ now that can help us? Molly's encouraged me to sleep better. I have breathing problems, a lot of breathing problems, but where do you stand on this? Like, where should we start to get this clock moving backwards a little bit?
Yeah. And when you say Molly's encouraging you, you're talking about sleep as a skill, Molly, right?
Yeah. That
she's
Molly.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure. Who knows? Maybe your wife's Molly. I don't know. Molly's encouraging me to keep early.
My wife,
Molly's
my new lab, my dog Marley.
If it's Molly McLaughlin Easton, she's encouraging you to go to bed at 7:30, and we all know that, and that's fair. Or at least, really, like I will say, she's pretty spot on. There's a big piece of circadian rhythm that I think is like low-hanging fruit and free, and also, let's be honest, really can be challenging for us to drag ourselves away from our favorite show or our family activities or, I don't know, the wild orgy we're having, whatever it is, to go to bed early, right? And so circadian rhythm, I think, is great. Molly, awesome. And the other thing that goes hand in glove with that is really light. I just recently did an interview with Rudy from Viva Rays. We talked a lot about light's effects on hormones, a little bit more of a deeper dive than I even had taken. I'm very good at following directions and I'm very good at knowing and aggregating a lot of data. But just when you have someone with an engineering background who's done all the research for 7 years, like Sarah being the world's foremost expert on photobiomodulation, Rowdy really brought to the table a lot around light. And so I think that that's the thing too, that we are in our homes, we're cooped up, especially now. We are not getting outside enough, feet in the ground, meaning like sneakers, not bare feet. I have a friend in Amsterdam who, whenever I send pictures, like, I'm in nature, because they're so into nature in Amsterdam in such a beautiful way. And it's a lot of parts of Scandinavia as well, that he's like, why are your shoes on? And so barefooting in nature and being out in the light, and that's like early morning light, as Andrew Huberman, Lord Huberman, has popularized. Being out in light in the morning, getting the rays into your eyes. Obviously, don't stare at the sun. And
Jack
then,
Kruse was saying that a long time before Huberman.
yeah, I'm sure. I know, but like people have been talking about this for a while. If Andrew Huberman comes out with an episode on photobiomodulation, I'm going to make sure that I just start sending him photos of Sarah until he responds to me.
I have heckled him a few times, but he hasn't had time to answer, I'm sure. A few things, but yes, you're right. It is that kind of stuff. It's out there.
It's out there. And I also like, I love him as well, because I think he's really trying to get free education out. He doesn't have some ulterior motive.
No,
that's like,
he doesn't.
Buy my Andrew Huberman doll, you know, and that's beautiful. So light at night, sunset, different types of rays in our eyes, and really understanding how we manage our bodies in nature. I spent 2 weeks in Toronto, north of Toronto, the better part of that in a little chalet with not great Wi-Fi and phone service, thankfully, and putting my feet in the soil, the silt, the snow, in the icy lakes, all of that, and just navigating my days around that, and having to really like force a certain amount of smaller time of my work happening in a specific space where there was Wi-Fi, and everything else being out in nature or natural. You just feel different. I came home thinking, wow, I'm cold adapted. I feel really good. I feel really healthy. And the minute I hit housing, normal life and light and roofs and artificial light again, I think, I don't feel as good. And I know it's hard to find those spaces. I can walk out my front door anytime, but it's winter.
It is.
And, we feel like, the solar light isn't really here. And so light is a big one in longevity. It's like, I'm hot for that right now. And obviously we're here to talk about breath and be entertaining, but breath is also a big thing.
I have noticed too, I've been going into my work office more now, and I noticed the kind of the ergonomics of the office. And there's one office that I go to, because we have multiple offices in San Francisco and one in Oakland, and there's one office where this incredible natural light, I feel so good. I'm like, God, I love working here. I got to come back here. And there's another where it's just all fluorescence, even though it's all glass. It's like, it's an internal facing building. And so it's all fluorescence, and I'm miserable. I'm like, I just want to go home. I'm exhausted. And so I think noticing those differences between natural light, which I'm working right now in, versus this fluorescent, even my eyes flutter and I feel like I'm going to like pass out in those fluorescents. It is important to really get away from those really awful fluorescent lights and get outside and get that light when you need it. Now, let's say I'm working. Sarah, this is more of a question for you too. Now I'm working, I'm in the office 8 hours. How often should I be going outside to go for a walk? Like, how often should I be like getting myself reset by time of day? Should I be doing something every 3 hours? Or, obviously I'd like to work outside all day long, but what is the proper way to do that? Because I am stuck in offices now.
We both have answers to this, but I feel like it's a good one for you to field, because you're so engrossed in light.
We have kind of talked about this before, Russ, where we do the morning light. So you're getting up before you're looking at your technology. And I know that's one of your Achilles heels, is that you can't wean yourself off the tech, but really to look at the sky before tech. And this is something that I have got down. And even when I'm, with my family, I'm kind of, even my little nephews, I push them outside before they can look at a screen. And in England, that just generally means looking at a dark sky, and you just put your feet on damp ground. Yeah. But doing that. But personally, I am out for 2 hours in the middle of the day when I'm in England. And I arrange all my phone meetings for around about lunchtime, and I walk. I've got like a park near me, and I
love that. I think it's like, this is I've been saying this a lot to my female clients. I have a lot of entrepreneur clients who are like rocking employees and, sales meetings and just all day long. And it's like, if you're running the show in a leadership position in your company, how can you set the standard for people to feel comfortable to do walk and talks? Right? Maybe it's like walking in a place that's safe. And like, if I walk out my door and I walk past my driveway, it's like I'm on a road that could feel like there's traffic that might run me over. But is there a safe place or a park or somewhere where I can walk or sit or be barefoot in a way that's a bit safe, just in the sense that perhaps I'm taking some notes in my notes on the phone, and we don't want to be doing that while we're, we want to be in the light as much as we can. But things come up, right? Things come up on meetings and you have to take a note or two. So where can we do that safely and outdoors? And how can we encourage other people to say, hey, let's do a walk and talk today? I have clients that will write me that say, I'm just jammed up today. I don't know if I can get on Zoom. And I'm like, if you're jammed up and you want to do a phone call, can we do it outside? And we will agree, and we'll both be walking. Once in a while, I have a personal client that I'm like, okay, I'm going to your house and we're having a meeting. Let's take the walk while we have the talk, because then you don't have to take
notes. You're
notes.
right there by the ocean, Russ. I mean, you've got the perfect for your lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, really, why are you not lunch break straight down by the ocean? Because it's not only you're outside. I mean, even the movement of walking, it's a left hemisphere, right hemisphere thing.
Yeah.
So no excuses really, Russ.
I found
you're doing it
walk and talks actually,
right, and that's it.
Yeah, I am. I know. Yeah, thank you. This is how I always feel lectured by everyone I talk to. No, it's not. I don't feel that way at all. I actually feel very much like I'm like everyone else and have a lot to learn, and I have no blockage in my body to say, like, I'm not listening to that. I'm too set in my ways. I'm not set in my ways. I will change anything if it means that I'll feel better. And I think the things that I've employed from 4 years of being with Sarah, there are things that make me feel better. There are things that made me feel like shit too that I've done on the show. But I think the things that are working.
That episode was really gnarly.
That was awful. But yeah, throwing up on air was not the smart thing to do. But I want to get to something, because I the light is very important, but sleep is something that I have been a bit obsessed with, because I spent 48 years of my life not sleeping. I mean, literally was like rewarding myself for working through the night and being like, I worked all night long and wrote a whole script. Like, that's, I read someone said somewhere, the quote of like, I'll sleep when I die, but like, that's frightening because I don't want to be dead and I like my sleep. But something about sleeping that I've noticed is that my breathing is mouth driven. Like, I am 100, like, when I'm not paying attention, I am mouth breathing constantly. So I've been really focused on closing my mouth, but at night I cannot do it. I bought my hostage tape. It is called Hostage Tape. And it's a terrible brand name, but I mean, look, keep sending it to me. I just bought it, but like, it is working. And I do find myself at 3 a.m. ripping it off, but like, at least from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., my mouth is shut. But it's a tough practice, because everyone's like, oh, you have a deviated septum, you need surgery on your nose. I'm like, no, I'm not getting surgery on my face. I'm 50. Like, it'll take me 6 months to recover from that surgery now.
This is something I wanted to ask you about too, Kristin. Like, because surely it's okay, we can tape our mouths, but surely there's a way we can correct it without.
There's some like cool stuff going on in the marketplace right now, for sure. And if you're talking about taping your mouth, there's a couple things like I want to unpack. The deviated septum thing. If you have somebody who's a medical professional, and I'm not a medical professional, but spoken to many about it, you have someone who's a medical professional and they're having a conversation with you. In the real landscape of deviated septums, we don't look like a textbook. And so everybody, most people, this is like leaky gut. People are like, I don't have leaky gut. I do have it. It's not black or white. It's a spectrum. And deviated septum could be like a minor thing or a major thing. And maybe someone who has a really bad issue with it, and has to get it corrected because they're making sounds when they breathe or something that's really, really off. But we all have a little bit of some kind of deviation in that space in some way or another, right? One of my breasts is larger than my other breast. In the textbook, it might not look like that, but there's differences. And that's based on a number of things. All of a sudden, everyone listens when I'm like, breasts. But those are differences, And so, like, we need.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about my testicles if you want.
Exactly.
I mean, if you want to go that direction, everyone will pay attention now.
And that's great. And also, if we want a mouth tape, we need to really commit to doing it. And Molly would agree with this, I believe. We need to really agree to do it with ourselves or our partner, our families, or whatever we're going to do. Because sometimes it's like, this is not great or sexy, but like we need to do it for 2 weeks straight in the beginning to be able to create some patterning in the body that feels like we're getting used to having our mouth closed. Again, if we're talking about mouth tape, we should always just mention, like, if you have heart conditions, if you have sleep apnea, if you have other things that are not like medically approved to do this, or you're not sure, you always want to ask your medical professional. But I have worked with so many people between nasal breathing and between mouth taping to be able to correct issues that they've had in their bodies, or at least take out the symptoms, right? I never want to use the word cure, but like highly improve their lives and their systems by using nasal breathing or by using mouth taping, as long as they're approved to do so. I think some people think it's super weird in the beginning when you hear about it. I know when I first read about it, I thought, you're insane. I'm never going to do that long term. I tried it for like an hour before I went to bed to just do it while I was awake. And then the next night I like taped for an hour and then took it off. Like, oh, there's a tape, I'm not affiliated really with any of these companies, but there's a tape called Somnifix, which tends to be, it's a mouth tape. It's more expensive, but it has a little like emergency hole. So if you get nervous, you can suck the air in and you can feel fine. And I use Viotape a lot, which men like you, Russ, a beard. First of all, women found it. I love that. But also people bearded or athletes can use that. It's a blue one and it can go in the shape of an H or like a capital I on your mouth. So some flexibility to take air in through the sides. Like there's lots of ways to play this, right? Mm-hmm. Patrick McEwen makes Myotape and on and on and on. Like for kids where it's around the mouth. So taking the fear out of that, letting people know that it's okay, and then really understanding that it's a patience of progress thing. Some people can do it the whole night, the first night, no problem. Some people, like me in the beginning, like I'd wake up at 4 a.m. with like tape on my forehead, no idea how it got there. And that's
my eye mask has been around my arm before. My eye mask is like my dog had it on. I was like, what?
Yeah. Tell me you're a biohacker without telling me you're a biohacker. It's like, morning. My headboard is like on the tape. So I just, mouth taping, I think it has big positive effects. I think, people have to tap into their own intuition and say, I'm either freaked out or I can, or I don't know. And like, also your comfort zone is killing you. Maybe try it.
Yeah. There's two things that I think have come from it. One is my wife has, finally told me like your snoring is unbearable. And so that's one, and and it gets addressed by closing my mouth. The other one is I did go to the dentist this last year, and my dentist said your gum line has receded and you have a very dry mouth because of the mouth breathing and at night. And so now it's like become a fixation for me to like shut my mouth at night. And we talked to Dr. Tim Jackson about this, about the shape of your jaw and like where your tongue is placed in your jaw. And I'm becoming so like hyper focused on it. I don't, I wake up punishing myself because I'm like, great, I just breathe through my mouth on that. My two front teeth are going to fall out. Like I'm going to be like, I'm going to need to get dentures now. But it's like, it is something that I really have struggled with for a long time. And I find that during the day, because I'm on camera all day with work, I can shut my mouth because I can see myself with my mouth open. But at night, it's my mouth just is open and I'm breathing in every piece of dust and flies and everything else. So
yeah, and you're losing some of your deep sleep and you're losing some of the good stuff for you. I'd like to also say, and I don't know about you personally because I'm not your medical professional or in your life or in your bed every night. And so I think that like there's something to be said for, are there things that you need to support your sleep, like taking some theanine or taking some things? If your job is super intense, and how are you unwinding before sleep? Because even with mouth tape, on the nights that I'm stressed and I don't do a proper unwind, I started to realize like I'm clenching, which I didn't used to do, right? So then it's like mentally, cerebrally, I'm like, oh, nose breathe to sleep. And then I'm clenching here. So navigating all that. And then I'll get the name and give it to Sarah to put in the show notes because I think it's fascinating. Someone has made this like medical wire grade nasal, I want to call them cannulas, that's not right, but like almost a sleeve, like a mini slinky, let's say that, right? It's like sort of like if you had stent type of thing. It's a little bit springy, it's really loose, and they make 3 different sizes of this nasal stent that you can actually take out. You can wear for 24 hours at a time and then take out and wash and put back in. And they live up here, like you put them pretty far up into your nose. And the goal is really to be able to open that sinus cavity and to sort of navigate or help your body shift either over time or be able to breathe better. And then as you're breathing better, things will start to change. I'm going to tell you a really quick growth story because I think it's important for people to hear, which is it won't happen overnight that this change happens, right? Number one, structurally, the older you are, the harder it is to structurally change your face. But number two, when I first got into all of this and was really trying to dig up nasal breathing and understanding why it had some benefits, also let's address the fact later that the entire world is so it's so on trend that you have 42 influencers on Instagram saying just tape your mouth all day long and like don't ever breathe out of your mouth or whatever. Like people are taking the message absolutist, which is not good either. But more nasal breathing tends to be better because we tend to be, generally speaking, mouth over breathers. But when I first discovered this, I went to a spin class and I committed to like I was like, the next 6+ months of spin, I'm only going to breathe through my nose for class, right? If I take, of course, I'm going to cheat here and there when I need to and take a sip of air in my mouth, but let me see what this is like, right? I read Nestor's book. I just felt into it. I went and actually, before I even did that, I bought a depth mask from Oxygen Advantage. So this is before the C word quarantine. And I was wearing this Bane mask on a spin bike in Los Angeles, heighten of the like boutique fitness spin studios. And people were like, what's wrong with the girl in the back row? Or like I had to tell the instructor why I was a weirdo. And I was still like proud of my experiment. And I wore that for a while until I realized, okay, I'm depriving myself of oxygen and making myself learn how to be more fit that way. It's almost like trying to train at altitude. And then I switched over and said, okay, you can take the mask off. I mouth taped and nasal breathed only. And then I just said, you can close your mouth. You don't have to be the weirdo who's got tape all over her face and 3 pieces in her pocket. And so I nasal breathed for the course of at least 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. And over the course of time, here's the gross part, I had 2 towels, right? My whole life as a ballerina, I had some paradoxical breathing, so reverse breathing pattern as a child. And we're socialized a bit about that as women, right? Suck in your belly. And then I got on the spin bike and I had 2 towels. I had 1 towel for sweat and the other towel for snot. And that sounds gross. But the reality is, over the course of those 6 months, the times that my nose was running and running and running, and like not gnarly, but just I didn't want to wipe my face sweat with my snot rag. And so over time, over those months, my body was course correcting itself. It was ridding itself of a lot of mucus. It was changing a little bit of the internal structure. I was feeling like I was getting more fit and I was able to play with nose and mouth breathing, sometimes mouth breathing before a sprint, but then going right back to nasal, because mostly I looked around the class, still to this day in Austin, I do this, and people are on the spin bike in the first 10 minutes of class, like,
yeah.
And it's like, how do we re-regulate that, right? Doesn't mean you can't use your mouth, but how do we re-regulate that? And so the point of all of that, all of those words is to say, this is, you have to understand in order to make the progress, you have to be patient and you have to like kind of take the knocks that might even get a little worse before it gets better, or a little more snotty before it gets better, but like figuring out how we can clear our system. And I had a hacking cough for a long time when I was a kid. I had some nasal stuff, like all of that mostly dissipated. And I attribute it to doing that, right?
That's what I would like to ask, really, is, you've done all this stuff and you are super fit. Like Russ and I, maybe not quite at that. I mean, I do a ton of walking. I don't do so much cardio.
Yeah.
So where do you start? Because do you go straight in with the whole mouth taping and all of that?
You can. I mean, there's spin studios in England and that would be super funny. And they probably here's another thing I say is like at the end of a spin class, I lay down in this Austin studio, Ride, shout out to Ride. I lay down in the studio to put my legs up and do 3 minutes of down regulation breathing. So I just, however I'm breathing in class, nose and mouth, whatever, I lay down and I do nasal breathing because I want to set my nervous system into recovery as soon as possible. But because I lay down on the floor and put my feet up and breathe calmly with my eyes closed, every single time someone will come over and ask me if I'm okay, or go and get an instructor or a staff member and say, you should check on her. Is she okay? And the reality is I'm just taking care of my body and I know and they don't know. And when I look around the spin room, totally fine that some people are using their mouth to breathe on the really hard efforts. But sometimes what would it feel like to breathe through your nose? So you don't have to tape and get all crazy like I did, but you could try whatever fitness you're doing. Like you're taking a walk with your girlfriends out a little hilly neighborhood stroll. And you could say, great, for the next 2 minutes, let's not speak at all. Let's just see if we can close our mouth and nasal breathe and like, just see how it feels. I think that's, a good start.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because like the whole thing is kind of building up, isn't it? Like if your body, like we all know that you snore more if you've had a drink, or you snore more if you've got a cold, because your body's not as healthy. So it stands to reason you need
or it's clogged, right? If it's like you have a cold and you can't breathe out of your body is beautiful and it's designed in a way that it's like, yes, we'll use this mouth hole.
Yeah. But
it's like survival mode.
You need to sort of go, okay, first of all, you need to breathe properly. You need to breathe properly in order for you to then swap around and play with your breathing. Like, I'm not even sure if I'm at the point where, am I holding my breath all day? I'm not even cognizant of.
Great. So this is a wonderful point. I just talked about this on my group coaching call today, which is what can we do to start gaining awareness around what's going on with my breath in general? So I'm not a fan of micro stressors. And part of the reason we overbreathe is because there's a lot of like alarms and bells and whistles. So I recognize that exists at the same time. And I'm about to tell you what I think is a great tactic, which is pick something different in your alarm cycle, a twinkle, a song you love, something that elicits something more joyful, and make that a little ringer that will go off once a day. And just take 2 weeks. And for those 2 weeks, set an alarm, same time every day, super easy to do in your phone. How that alarm goes off. Chances are there'll be some days you're doing the same thing and some days you're doing different things. When that little twinkle or that, I don't even know, what would Russ listen to for music? That
EDM,
country song,
EDM,
that German trance.
I've been in EDM and I was in this crazy ethereal piano, and then I got into EDM and I'm listening to this Fred Again album over and over again, and I'm like high as a kite working.
What's the name of the group?
Yes.
Fred Again. He does some great shit. So you have your Fred Again song go off on your phone, and you're like, yes, we lost dancing or whatever, right? And then
yes,
it goes off,
exactly.
and you say, this is a 1 minute exercise, people. You go, how am I breathing right now? Through what hole? My nose or my mouth? And the second question you ask yourself, it's like a 15-second exercise. The second question you cerebrally just ask yourself, how do I feel? And what am I doing right now? And is that correlated to the way that I'm breathing? Do I feel heightened? Do I feel emotional? Am I pissed off at my boss? Am I tired? What's going on? It's not a right or wrong. It's just an inquiry. And let that alarm go off every day for 2 weeks. And then you're like, And you know what's going to happen in the in-between phases on day 3 and day 4? There'll be 1 other or 2 other times that you recognize it. Maybe your alarm goes off and you recognize it in a room where you're like, I'm in the office with 6 people. And then you're like, I'm going to be a creeper. How is everyone else breathing? Oh, you're frustrated. And I can tell by the way that your upper chest breathing and your shoulders are moving. And you just start to get a little nerdy about it. And that's a great way to just start bringing awareness into the body to say, where am I at right now? No judgment. Like, I might be off, and that's cool. And I'm breathing heavily, and that's fine. I might be in the throes of lovemaking. How am I breathing right now? And that's
What are you thinking about my breathing? It's
really.
That's how I last longer. I just think about my breathing. I would ask because I think we jumped ahead a little bit, because I know we talked about this the last time we talked to you, which has been a while. I think it's been a couple of years since we talked to you, and I think the importance of breathing, because I think we jumped ahead to advanced breathing, but just to reset, because earlier Sarah and I were talking about the idea that, like, after a really stressful day, you just take in a deep breath and it's a reset. But why is breathing so important? Obviously we breathe all day long, but why is controlling our breath such an important thing to do? Because I feel like we may have glossed over that and jumped into this sort of advanced training.
There, Russ. Really good. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, we know that, my mentor, Casper Vandermeulen, would joke, like, the longer you breathe, the more you live. But the reality is that we are, like, if I'm breathing, I'm alive. And that's what I think people think, like, this is boring or this is stupid. I'm breathing every day. I'm already doing it. How can I be bad at it? And again, it's not about bad. What it's really about is context. Like, if you want to optimize your breathing for the context of the thing you're doing, shouldn't you know maybe what's more optimal in that situation? Maybe. And I was on Luke Cook's podcast, who's quite a funny man. And, he really wanted to know a lot about breathing and sex, and like how he can last longer, for example, and how he can make it more romantic or feel better for his wife or heighten or lengthen his point of orgasm or all those things. And so that's a context most people are interested in. Sarah just came back from CES and she said the most important tech innovation was a penis pump they showcased there. So, people are interested in it.
Yeah.
That's not what it's the only thing it's about, but find the context of what you're using your breath for, and then gaining some awareness around maybe like how to breathe for your fitness practice, how to breathe on a walk. The reason we say breathing is important, and I hesitate to say correct breathing. There is a biomechanical better way to breathe. That's hard to deny. just diaphragmatic, using more of like expanding your lungs, breathing into the lower lobes of the lungs, things like that. And that's a lot around Patrick McEwen's work, a lot around some science. And also, if we are breathing with a slower cadence or pace, the real thing I think we all don't know or learn in school, at least I didn't, is carbon dioxide, which is what we exhale, right? So we all know this. Let's just go back to 6th grade. Inhaling air, it's probably got oxygen, ding, 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 21% oxygen. Exhaling air, carbon dioxide, just about a similar amount. The other stuff is inert gases, right? We have in the air, but we inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. We make the carbon dioxide actually great. I'm oversimplifying, so all the biochemistry people out there can just, bang a pan at me later. So we know that's the breath basics. And then what we don't learn in school is that the vehicle to get oxygen off the red blood cells, off the hemoglobin, into the tissues, meaning our brain, our organs, our skin, our body, our muscles, that vehicle is carbon dioxide. So we have to have enough carbon dioxide inside the body, not expelling it all or over breathing, to be able to drive the oxygen into the tissues. So there is something of great import to think about when it comes to, if I want to be more oxygenated, more focused, less angry at my kids, more down-regulated, meaning calmer in my nervous system state, most likely I'm going to want to use the carbon dioxide I have in my body to be able to push oxygen in my system, right? To keep me at a very good baseline, at an optimally well state. Now, we could be using it differently for fitness or harder bouts, but a lot of our day, we want to be focused, aware, awake, all of those things. So how do we breathe in that regard? So we have smaller holes in the nose, and nasal breathing is going to breathe into the lower lobes of our lungs. And that is going to make a better gas exchange. And then we get more oxygen into the tissues as I cough it out.
And slow. Nasal breathing in for slower breaths, you're saying?
Yeah.
Breathe less is the answer. Breathing less.
Breathe less. And so just simplifying it for my slow brain and non-scientific brain is that it is important for proper breathing for the activity that you're doing, right? So we take breathing for granted because it's something we do subconsciously. We're not even really, if we thought about breathing, we probably would have a really hard time because we're breathing all day long and it's habitual. But we need to adjust our breathing for the activity that we're participating in. And I think recognizing it, putting the alarm on, recognizing that, we're mouth breathing right now, my jaw is open and I'm going to start, adding to my triple chin here, are all things that we need to recognize because we do have to regulate it a bit. We do have to think about it more, and we don't take it for granted that when we're working out, we should be thinking about breathing through your nose. But the advantages of doing that are, us being able to live longer, full circle. So the better we breathe, the longer we'll live.
Yeah, and you used a beautiful word.
Conscious.
You used a word that is not as, honestly, like controlling our breathing. I want to be just careful about the semantics because autonomically our bodies will breathe, right? And controlling our breathing, it can be important. But there's also a thing about over-controlling the breath, right? What I don't want people to do is listen to this and then be like, 95 hours a day, I'm just going to be like, I'm just, there's a balance. This is like the ebb and the flow of things that go on. There's like no shame in the game. Just figure out where and how you're breathing. And it's more about awareness than it is anything else. And it's more about like, let's use big mouth breaths when we're in higher gears. Like, Brian McKenzie talks a lot about the gear system when it comes to athletes. When I'm teaching my Sherpa breath and cold instructor training, I have a gear system that's sort of a combination of Casper's work and Brian McKenzie. Casper worked with Wim Hof for a number of years and has his own systems. And it's just, we need to understand the context. It's the thing we don't talk about. It's like am I scared to go on stage to speak and have a big presentation, and maybe doing a few breaths in and out of my mouth is going to like help, or maybe it's going to hinder. Am I depressed and can't get out of bed in the morning? Am I feeling like I'm really not motivated to go to the gym today? Is there a way that I can breathe? Am I in the gym and I'm about to do a lift that's like my personal record? How do I breathe for that? And what biomechanical connection does that have to my diaphragm or my abdominal muscles in a way that I can make the lift. And I'm not trying to make it too complicated by giving all these examples, but every single hour of our lives, we're going to have a different context. And so how do we apply enough awareness of our breath and be curious to say, what would happen if I breathe this way? You know? And it doesn't always go right. Sometimes it goes wrong. And that's okay. Like, you know, be safe. Don't drop the weight on your partner or whatever. But there's many ways that we can curiously lean into it, and some tools. There's other breath tools out there too, you know, that could get more like nerdy. Like there's a breather fit that's like $35 US. That's we are using our mouth, but we are actually training our breathing muscles, right? So it's a respiratory muscle trainer. See really quick advances from that. There's fancy ones like AeroFit, and then there's simpler ones. And the difference in those is basically price, meaning one's fancy and has technology and all the apps, and one is like, do it yourself. But they all can work.
Yeah, I think we'd like to go through it. We'll do your little alarm, start to get conscious of the breath, do the exercise, and maybe progress onto some of these things. But you've got to start from acknowledging how important breath is.
Yeah.
Especially if we're trying to do a program for longevity, because everything else is going to hinge on actually being consciously aware of what you're doing in your body. And breathing is the fundamental.
Yeah, and we talk about grip strength having a real correlation to longevity and lung capacity and capability to breathe over a period of time. Like that correlates to longevity as well, right?
Does grip strength relate to lung capacity?
I don't know.
That would be interesting.
Both of them are talking about separately, but that would be really interesting if that let's get a research team together.
Yes.
Real scientists.
Let's get a research team together, publish the abstract. We'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
But it's something you said though is and I have a daughter. You can see behind me. She plays basketball in college, and it's something she's been saying too is the difference in training. I have, like, you can see her picture.
Sliding on that behind you.
I made that for her. Yeah, I made that for her, and it ended up back at my house because she's at college. She's like, "What am I going to do with this in college?" I'm like, "You're right. I'll save it for you." My wife was like, "You're just going to put it up yourself because it's only you care about it." But she said that like breathing is so important, especially when you're running all game long, right? And you're training all day long. I imagine that professional athletes, elite athletes have to learn different breathing techniques to, marginally get themselves greater. Olympic athletes must have to learn how to breathe differently and learn how to pace themselves with breath, right? And I don't know anything about it, but it sounds like you're.
I want to tell you a little, like, this is such a cool question you're asking, just practicality wise. And any athlete, anyone I work with, I'd say you're an athlete. And even if they're like, oh, I'm not really, it's like, you're an athlete of life. And you're going to learn how to be more mobile and more physically fit than you have before. That's why we're working together. Let's just call it what it is. You're an athlete, right? Like, stand in the shoes of an athlete. But we also recognize there are professional athletes and Olympians and things like that. And so more recently, this past year, I went and worked with it's like my first paid professional athlete. And I felt like intimidated to walk in there just to, you want to talk about imposter syndrome. I'm working with tons of people in breath for lots of years, but I thought I'm going to walk into this training facility that happened to have 35 people on the team training. And I was like, they're all going to be exquisite breathers. They're all going to be amazing at this. And there's like, am I going to be able to offer, I'm working with one specific female, but am I going to be able to offer guidance to this person that's really going to be helpful, right? It was a breath and a cold experience in my contract. Navigating some female hormone stuff too. So I went into this sort of arena, this training, males and females mixed, where the teams are all training together. And I looked around the room, and I walked into this specific sport. I won't even talk about it specifically because it just contracts, whatever. But I walked into this arena, let's say, and I thought, oh my God, I might as well be like Pippi Longstocking with two pigtails. And everyone's like shredded and buff and strong and fighting and doing all the things and saying stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is awesome. And also, are they ever going to listen? Like the person I'm working with is hopefully going to listen to me. And I'm sure I can learn here. But those athletes I was looking at, I was watching them do the work that they do. And I was like, nobody in this room is breathing optimally for what they're trying to do. Right? If you go and you watch, let's just talk about, like Joe Rogan, MMA, UFC, like if you go and you watch a fighter, they are finally in the last 6 months or so making breath a predominant piece of the training for those elite fighters, the ones who are winning, the ones who can pay for coaches like that. And more it's coming to the foray, but there is a strong shift, thankfully, that's just happening now. It didn't exist before. No one was training professional athletes or Olympians on breath. I don't want to say no one. I'm sure there's like in Russia or whatever.
Yeah, and
but it's not. It wasn't
people
prevalent.
were ahead, weren't they?
Yeah,
when
like,
you think about Kung Fu and Tai Chi, when they're teaching you all of that breath work. I mean, that's why I think Tai Chi is a fundamental of Kung Fu.
Yeah, because it's so interesting.
But yeah, it hasn't gone into boxing. They don't teach it
because you can see if someone, look, it's not always going to be the case, but you can tell when someone's losing their gas by the way that they breathe. They stop breathing through their nose, they drop their mouth, they're in a position, they're like going to fight, and like especially if they come too hot out of the gate nasal breathing, then by the end of the third round or whatever it's going to be, they're lost in the sauce. Now they both might be, right? If two people are going to fight in an octagon against each other, they both might be like lost in the sauce a little. They both have switched to mouth breathing because they're tired at that point. But we're watching in the UFC where men are fighting each other and someone's like getting to the last round, or, again with my lingo, but they're getting to the last round in this bout and they're still nasal breathing, and you just know who's the champion in that ring. You can see where the race is going to go, if you will. And so that's a really interesting, important dynamic that is now starting to thankfully shift. Lots more trainers are coming into the mix and are coming from, they're retired in whatever sport they're doing, and they're bringing breath to sport. And I was amazed. Like, Russ, that's why your question is so fascinating, because I'd be like, the best of the best breathers are going to be Olympians and pro athletes. And that hasn't been the case, right? And they're not recovering as well because they're not breathing well. And again, I'm generalizing because it's getting better, but there's so many athletes that could benefit from just getting a breathing coach. Really. It's like this woman was elite and smart enough to say, if I can shift this much of my breath and it's a 1% difference and all I'm doing is 1% better, that's the win. That's the difference of the win. When you're the top 1% athletes, every little inch counts. And so that's what's so exciting about that. And that's that person. And for the rest of us householders, we can make massive gains if we just pay a little attention.
That's right. And I think, and there's two important things there. One is, from my daughter's perspective, is that her team is running all game long and they sub out a lot, and they tend to say they're in better shape and they win because by the time the fourth quarter hits, the team they're playing is exhausted and they're still in elite training, and the coach's wife is the track coach and they work on breathing. And I agree with you. I think that's the difference in a lot of cases, especially of these like high endurance sports like soccer and boxing and things where you just you're like, you don't get a break. Within football, you have a play, you stop, you breathe, and you go back to the next play. In baseball, you're barely moving. I'm sure every baseball player will scream at me for that one. But then I think when you translate that back to your house and you and your life, is like, I think is recognizing that you have breathing issues and recognizing that there are times where we have to learn how to breathe better and improve that. And I think your advice on the sleeping and the working out is so great, and focusing on working on it. It's going to take me 6 months to clean this up and figure out how to do it. But now that I'm working on it, it's gotten better, but it's still like, I'm waking up in the morning going like, I'm on my phone at 4 a.m. and I'm saying to myself, Sarah thinks I'm an idiot because I'm on my phone and I just breathe through my mouth all night. So I'm punishing myself.
Yes,
in the
we
morning,
stop the negative self-talk.
Yeah, stop the negative self-talk, Russ. You can breathe yourself out of that.
I will.
I also want to liken this thing. Let's talk about what it's like to be someone in the general population, or someone who's not a professional athlete or Olympian. Yeah. Here's the thing. At some point or another, we've probably, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever it is, we've like had to yell at our partner or our kids, or a moment that we've just had a mini exacerbated issue, and we've like hollered, or we've gotten red in the face, or we've gotten really frustrated after a phone call, or like we've had something, hopefully this doesn't happen to people listening, but like some tragedy happens and we're red in the face, we're yelling, we're defending, we're fighting, where the lion is coming at us, whatever it is. Our breathing pattern is very similar to someone who's in like the third round of a fight. It's like someone who's like, run 40 bases. Oh, there's only 3, but whatever. So, people, there's a similarity. And so how do we get to the place where we can recover from that? because the breath is the nervous system, is the remote control to the nervous system, which means we can reverse engineer the way we're breathing in any given moment, in any moment of depression, anxiety. Now, I'm not saying people should go off their meds, or I'm not saying that this isn't real. I'm saying we can reverse engineer feeling like shit, feeling unmotivated, feeling like we can't, it's an insurmountable challenge in front of us, by breathing differently. Because if we're attenuating and shifting our nervous system state, then what's actually happening is our nervous system is going to tell us that we're fine. Our nervous system is going to say, okay, this is the same reason that I will have people breathe in a super ventilated fashion, lots of mouth breathing very quickly, to be able to sort of get out of their default mode network so that they can process some trauma and then come back and land them in a space of downregulated breath. And that's important, because if we can get to downregulated breath, or we can get to a breath that serves us, then we can feel better and we can have a better mindset, right? Conversely, Russ, if there's like a baby in the road and a Mack truck is flying down the highway and you're like, I am Russ, I'm going to save you, you're not going to have a moment where you say, hold on, let me get calm and focused. You are going to take 15 big breaths in your mouth as you're barreling towards that kid, as you scoop it up just in the nick of the time and get across the street and save the day. So we're going to find the context that we need to use the breath. And we can get ourselves to the place that we need to conquer, or we need to downregulate from, if we're not feeling great, anxious or sad, and we can get ourselves feeling better, get our mind actually changed, right? And I've had that happen to my body in such a profound way that I've released trauma through it, that I felt better through it. And then I've been like, holy cow, this is the simplest low-hanging fruit that I can breathe myself into better. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's beautifully said. It's so beautifully said. And my partner, when she's in her stress mode, I watch her and she stops breathing. She's literally just like holding her breath and her face gets all red. I'm like, honey, you have to breathe, because if you don't breathe, you're actually going to pass out. And that's a whole other situation. But she stops breathing. And like, if you can breathe yourself back to wherever you need to get to, whether you're going to go up or down. But understanding that is just so important. Kristin, before we go, let's talk about where everyone can find you, all of your links. We'll put everything up on our side, obviously. It's already up there, but like, where can everyone find you and all your wonderful breathing techniques?
Super. I mean, I think the big followership exists on Instagram still in the world. That I'm at Warrior Woman Mode. It's my name of my women's programs, and it's just stuck with me. And when I'm at conferences, people yell that down the hallway, so it probably won't ever go away. They're like, I don't know your name, but Warrior Woman Mode. I don't just coach women when it comes to breath and cold exposure. I'm at wellpower.life, brand new website, super exciting. It's a portal for all my work. Wellpower, Warrior Woman Mode is the women's programs, and then Wellpower is my podcast, of which Sarah's been on. She's one of my first guests. Amazing. And people can find me there. It's easy. I answer my own DMs. So write me about whatever your crazy things are, and I'm happy to write you back and just be there to support everyone who's out, working on their wellness.
Yeah. Thank you, Kristin. We're so lucky to have you as an example. We're so lucky to have the expert here on tap, that we not only do you say everything that helps you understand, but you're also living it, so you have an example.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect either, but I'm going to get there one day. 4 weeks to perfect.
Yeah, we can do it.
And having you two together is very biblical to me. It's like you have the breath of life and the light of life. It's right there.
Oh, Russ, I'll send the check in the mail tomorrow.
You are smoothie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. Go enjoy the rest of your day in Texas, and enjoy the sun, Sarah.
I will. And next time I see you, I'll be on the other side. So.
I know. Sunny says hi to you. I named my dog after Sarah. My dog's name is Sunny.
Oh.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Breaking the gray.